Hi there, I'm Angela Brown, and this is Ask a House Cleaner. This is a show where you get to ask a house cleaning question, and I get to help you find an answer. Now, today's question comes from a business owner who owns a cleaning company and wants to know, how do I stand out amongst all the other competitors that are in my marketplace? Well, it comes down to a couple of things, and one of them is protect your brand. Now, that sounds like it's easy to say, but what does that mean? What that means is no matter what the decisions are that happen inside your business, you and all of your employees need to protect your brand. And so I learned this from my dad when I was a kid. What it amounts to is wherever you go, you have to assume that people are watching you. And this was a philosophy that my dad had. He said, no matter who you are and no matter where you go, people will be watching. It's like little hidden cameras, but now they're making judgments about you. And the judgments that they're making about you are these. If they see one of your employees, they're going to assume that every one of the employees in your company behaves and responds and works the same way. So they will be making judgments about your entire company on the one employee. And so if you are the one employee, always protect the brand. And so if you're out there working, maybe you're really tired from last night. You stayed up way too late. You were eating pizza. You got a terrible bellyache. Maybe you're just exhausted and then you fell asleep. You woke up, now it's time to go to work and you're just like, whoa, like a bus hit you, okay? We've all had mornings like that. When you get to the customer's house, if you say, oh man, I am so tired. I so didn't get enough sleep last night. Like, whoa. Guess what? That customer is going to think, wow, all of their employees are overworked. All of their employees undersleep. They're all exhausted. And I'll tell you this, in all of the years that I've been house cleaning, I have never once gotten a referral from a customer that said this, oh, you should hire my house cleaner. They're always overworked and they are exhausted and they are just barely making it by, just scraping by with the energy, and they come in just physically exhausted and worn out. You should hire my house cleaner. I've never heard that once. So being exhausted and being worn out, that is not a badge of honor. That is not something that you want to take to your customers' houses. As the business owner showing up to inspire your employees, that is not the attitude you want to bring to your employees. No employee wants to show up and go, my boss, you are not going to believe my boss. She crams 68 hours worth of work into every 24-hour day. She's always exhausted. She's so tired. She's so burned out, right? People don't want to work for a company like that. And so as the employer, you have to protect your brand. And so that, like I say, that is not a badge of honor. Yeah, we're all tired. As parents, as business owners, most of us are exhausted all of the time. Okay? That's a given. But we're actors. So we want to show up and we want to act like we are enthusiastic for the job. And that is part of protecting your brand. It's not telling everybody every little detail. If I'm really tired and I'm physically exhausted, guess what? That's on me. That's bad time management. I did not manage my time well enough to take care of me and to get a good night's sleep. That is my fault. And so I don't want to show up and I don't want to share that with my employees, and I certainly don't want my employees to share that with their clients. So if your employees are really exhausted and they're burnt out and they're overwhelmed, they need to figure out a way to not show that when they're at a customer's house, because the customer doesn't want that to be their house cleaning person. They want the person that showed up well rested, eager, excited to clean their house, and is going to do a fantastic job. They hired someone for solutions, not so that they could babysit and become the therapist to that person. Now, when I was little, my dad played this game with all of us kids. He'd gone to a trade show or something. I don't know where he got these. But you've seen those little metallic buttons that they wear during election time that said, I'm voting for so-and-so? He found these little buttons at a trade show, and it was the little A-OK sign. And it said, anything you can do better. And he brought these little buttons home, and we all wore them on our shirts or our lapels or whatever we were wearing. We wore these little buttons to remind each other as we saw each other through the day that no matter what we were doing, we could do a little bit better. And it was a great challenge for us. We wore these for about a year, like we wore them all of the time. But it was a really great way to reprogram in our minds that I'm doing a job right now. Can I do this job a little bit better? Can I give it a little bit more? And I know that we're in a hurry cleaning houses, but this is your brand. And so if your brand and your entire workforce goes the extra mile and they do just a little bit more, and the job that they're doing, instead of slopping through it really quickly, if they do it just a little bit better, there is a competition. Yeah, it gets out. It's called reputation. And so there are people who talk. Hey, I'm thinking about hiring a house cleaner. Does anybody know anybody good? Yeah, my house cleaning company is amazing. Everybody they send out goes a little bit extra. They do just a little bit more. And that becomes your reputation. That is your brand. And so as part of that, what do you do to ensure that you are a little bit better? You double check your work. And I know this sounds obvious. I mean, this is just common sense, but go back and double check your work. When you leave a room that you've just cleaned, you need to know with 100% certainty that is as clean as that room can be. And you leave that room with pride. As you vacuum your way out of the room, you're like, yeah. So my company, we started doing this several years ago when they started introducing the home security cameras. And this is fun, okay? We vacuum our way out of the room, and when we have inspected the room, when the room passes inspection, we literally do a thumbs up and we go, nice. I can't tell you how many times we've been picked up on home security cameras looking at a room we just cleaned going, nice. Okay, so people see that on the home security cameras. They're watching the maids as the maids are cleaning. The maid double checks her work or his work, and they look at the room and they go, nice. Guess what happens? The client goes, nice. And guess what? They'll show that to their friends. So my house cleaning lady is at my house right now. She just cleaned this room. Check this out. And they show on the phone the house cleaning lady on the home security camera, the house cleaning guy is going, nice. And then they're like, oh, wow, that's so cool. I got to hire that house cleaner, right? Something very small. But when you double check your work, when you inspect your work, you know when you leave. I'm not going to get a call, somebody saying, I want my money back. I want your satisfaction guarantee, because guess what? You've approved it. It meets your standard of excellence. And as the cleaner, your standard of excellence should always be higher than the customer's. Set the expectations low when you bid the job. Don't overbid and don't overpromise. Because if you're coming in on a reputation referral, that customer already knows you do excellent work. But your expectations should always be higher than the customer's. And when you give it your seal of approval, nice. Guess what? The customer sees that. The customer is going to walk in and go, nice, right? So that does transfer. The next thing that I need to mention is common sense. There are times you're going to go into a customer's house and there are going to be things that are not part of your regular routine cleaning. For example, you might go in and there's a chicken left out on the cupboard from lunch. And you just arrived after lunch. The common sense thing is put the chicken in the fridge so it doesn't go bad, right? That's just common sense. That's not part of your regular routine. And you don't need to tell the customer that, hey, I put your chicken back in the fridge, or I saw a gallon of milk out on your cupboard, I put that back in your fridge. Little tiny common sense things that add up. Because the last thing you want to do is have a customer come home and the house looks amazing and there's chicken and milk out on the cupboard. Like, really? My house cleaner couldn't see that it got left out from lunch? It's not part of your job, right? So you could argue and say, well, that's not part of my job. It's a little bit extra. Anything you can do better. It takes, what, 1 second, 2 seconds to slide that inside the fridge? It doesn't take long. So go the extra mile when you can afford to do that. Use common sense. Every day you're going to run into little things that require common sense. And common sense is not so common. There are other house cleaners out there, I promise you, that don't have common sense. And they're going to get fired and you're going to get hired because you have common sense. I can't tell you how many times we've been hired just because we have common sense. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's common sense. Yeah, but it's not common. So if you have common sense and you double check your work and you do a great job every time, you're never going to lack for work. And if there's ever an opportunity, this we actually learned from Warren Buffett. His philosophy is always protect the brand. So if your employee goes out into the workforce and there's a situation that requires them to make a quick decision and you are not available as the business owner, you need to empower them to always protect the brand. Because that client is going to see your employee and they're going to assume everyone in your company makes these kinds of decisions and acts just like this one employee. And you need to empower that employee, whatever the decision is, to always protect the brand. And you will never lack for work. All right, that's all I have for you for today. Until we meet again, leave the world a cleaner place than when you found it.